The first part of tonight, we're going to just quickly go through if anyone wants to talk about it or just have a general chat about our news predictions for November. 30 people participated in that and put RV sessions out for that, which were quite interesting. And then for the second half, we're going to have Elly Molina to give us a presentation, which should be very interesting. I'm just going to let a couple more people in here and give it a couple more minutes because we usually get a few stragglers here. So, does anyone want to go through or discuss their remote viewing that they did for predictions for November? That would be the point to start with, really. Anita, do you want to? Do you want to go for it?
Right. Do you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Hi. So mine was it's the first time I'm doing news prediction. It was horrible. I see lots of bodies on the ground outdoors, and they've been hit by a car, squashed, and it was very vivid. I see the hands twisting, breaking, their bodies squashed. I hear the screams. It was intense. So I couldn't, I wanted to do more detail, but I just couldn't because I heard the screams and I could see all the flesh and things. But it looked as if it was a young man who will be considered like a clown or like an imbecile. He's driving a car, and the car has some kind of a symbol, which is a black animal, maybe like the Ferrari black horse or some black animal on it, or a phoenix or such. And he drives first up a bridge, and the car will end up possibly deliberately driven off the bridge, or that there's some kind of a gap or hole and it just lands on the people and keeps intentionally driving slowly into people. There's a huge crowd. The people are running towards a wall, trying to climb over each other. People are piling up and trying to climb over the wall and the fence. And it's in a big city close to the coast. There are sharks in the water, so that's a clue about where in the world it might be. It looks kind of a high-tech area, lots of streets for cars. There's a pyramidal and or a dome-shaped building with a glass exterior. Registers kind of like a mosque. The building nearby, there's a tunnel. It's a chaos. There's going to be armed guards shooting at the driver. And the people being driven, hit with the car, they're innocent. They're not military. There's people inside the glass building. They see what's happening. They see the driver. They're trying to escape further inside of the building. It's the first time I'm doing this, and I'm very susceptible for displacement. So we don't know what's going to happen. But there's already been a similar incident with the, what's it called, the Travis Scott. There were people, you've heard about the Travis Scott concert. There were some similarities. You have this young male center who's kind of responsible or considered responsible, and people getting crushed in a big crowd outdoors. So, and there's the fences, but there's no car involved. I'm hoping I'm not getting displacements from that because it's not a good match, but there are some elements. But anyhow, I want to still wait and see if I get a better match of something. So that's what I had. It was horrible. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. The problem we have with looking at the news, of course, is that, and I think we discussed this in the past, and myself and Naim knows this because we do the news every month, is that it is unfortunately quite negative on a on a monthly basis. Looking at the news, they never really report positive news stories in any big way. Does anyone else want to share anything about the news and that we did in November? Go for it, Don.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen, and let's hope this works. You're seeing my screen now?
Yeah, we are done.
Okay. Okay. So I actually wanted to talk about something that I just found out I predicted and it was accurate. And that is I did a session for Rick, and he wanted to, the target was who was going to win the Baseball World Series. I did this in April, forgot all about it. I sent this thing over to him, and it did have some things in there that might indicate we were talking about baseball, very vague sounding sort of things. But he said, look over your session and see if you can find anything that might indicate like a city or a state, because these baseball teams are all sort of like city and state oriented. And I went through my session, and there were two items here that I wrote as AOLs. I didn't even know how to spell them, actually. Habershom, whatever that is, and litany. And so what I did was I took those and put them into Google. And I typed Habershom, the way I spelled it, and baseball, the two words, into Google, and it returned this picture of Habersham. So then I typed in Habersham into Google, and Habersham is a county in Georgia. So then I looked up Major League Baseball in Georgia. This is like 3 Google steps in a row here, all right? And it returned Atlanta Braves, and they were the ones that won. Now, what is this, Daz? This is like not even a direct reference. This is some sort of like, I don't know, indirect reference. Do you encounter this?
It almost looks like Tom McNair's Stage 7, the phonetics, where you start, speaking and pronouncing words.
Yeah, this is like, it's not a direct reference, it's an indirect reference. In database technology, this is called a relational database. It's sort of like the winning team has a location, and then from there, there's like, a county in the same state, and, then there's this baseball team, a minor league team in Habersham. So I just thought this was a very, very interesting little exercise. I don't know what to make of it, but I thought I would point it out to everybody that this stuff can happen.
Don,
stuff,
if
Don.
I may add something.
Yeah.
You talked about the relational database, and
Yeah.
I would say that it's also similar to the closest match possible. What has happened to me in the past in some sessions, especially where you're like trying to pinpoint something, and you're not using any other type of methodology try to get it geographically. Usually, at least in my case, my subconscious kind of drives me to places around it. The logic behind that, I don't get it. But somehow, as you mentioned, it kind of points to something that you may be able to get, be it a Google search or an encyclopedia search or whatever. And from that, you're able to get to the actual point. So just wanted to share that because it's very similar to what you're saying. And it's like you get data, not exactly how you want it. No one said that RV would make it easy, but at least it's fun, right?
Okay, this is a very interesting point, and I'm glad you brought it up because in my experience, I started out years and years ago as a teenager getting a Ouija board as a gift, and I noticed that it did work, and there was this economy of expression going on. It would just say the fewest number of things to convey a concept. And I'm starting to wonder whether that Habersham was like some sort of economy of expression, because I was able to use that word to get through the next thing. And the very next word, by the way, AOL, these two are written together, was litany. I didn't know how to spell it. I looked that up. And a litany is a series. World Series.
Yeah.
Wow. Blows my mind.
It might be the lowest common denominator, Don, because That's essentially what all RV is really when we're doing the ideogram and we're getting the gestalt of the target. So you're taking the entire whole elements of the target and break it down into constituent little smaller parts, but with detail. And it's the same with sketching. Most people, when they sketch in stage 3 of CRV or a derivative, it doesn't have the detail that a sketch would if you were in front of it as a person. It's almost very rudimentary and basic. And I personally think this is probably down to a bandwidth problem, because we know the bandwidth for consciousness is something like, I think I've seen stated reports, they're different, but it's something like 16 bits to 124 bits per second, which is pretty tiny when you think about it.
So
I
you're
have a
saying,
question for you there. Oh, sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I just wanted to understand what, Des, you're saying that I got the word Habershon because of a bandwidth.
I think everything in the entire RV process is through some kind of filtering mechanism. I don't know how it works. It's presented to you smaller than it actually is in real life. Even if you do get visual images, no one sits there with a complete, strong, beautifully detailed 3D visual image. If you do get a visual image, it's just like really broken up, crackly, out of focus, there for a split, minute part of a second. And that is all because the bandwidth for consciousness is just so small. It's a bit like the when you were on the internet if you're ever on the on the internet in 1989, and you had a 4K modem, and if you wanted to download a picture on the screen about that big, it would come down a line at a time, and you'd be there 5 minutes later just waiting for the picture to emerge. I think that's what's happening with RV. We're getting it a line at a time.
All right.
Well, consciousness just isn't big enough for big things.
I just thought this was a very unusual thing. I wanted to point it out, and that's everything I got right here.
Your technique you're using, are you using a method? Because it doesn't look like any of the methods that I've seen so far.
Well, let me put this thing back here if I can.
Is it one of your own?
No, it's TDS.
In TDS, have you learned to, or do they do a thing where you break down like a stage 5 so you can take your AOLs into another stage and break them down to get more information?
Well, Rick described this thing to me as a fun target. So what I did was I did the usual scribble at the front, which I'm trying to wonder if this is a baseball batter, because sometimes there's some correspondence. And then I was just writing perceptions here. And then what I do is when I get an AOL, I just number it and put it on the side. And I found it was important to understand where the AOL came in the sequence of my perceptions, which is why I started numbering these things, because sometimes they read together. Yeah. I was getting these loose sort of things here, but basically it's like, section C is your perceptions, AOL's on the other side. I was numbering them because I like to see the order. And then because this was an experiment, I was trying all sorts of things. I saw Dick Allgaier, write close his eyes in 1.5 seconds and then take a little sketch. So I was putting stuff down here, and I did get levitating and maybe something to look like a baseball player and a bat here with noise, and I was getting ringing surprise and stuff like that. One thing I guess I did want to point out, we have this concept of a matrix here. And I typed in a question, I put it in brackets, and these things don't match up with baseball at all. But then I did it again, but I did an ideogram, and I interpreted the ideogram, and everything started lining up with the baseball thing. Subjects, change of importance, brotherhood. It was like, I don't know whether they recommend you do ideograms in the matrix, but I'm finding that it works. So I'm going to do that.
It's slightly different, but in CRV you can do an ideogram in any stage.
You can. It's okay then. All right. Well, fine. That's good to know.
Great work. Just to not let lose this topic, Des and Don, at the same time. I have been trying to do analogies between, normal life and RV, just to see if I find, any correspondence. Because I saw one post by someone, saying about a bad session and how to deal with that, and I immediately got thinking about, well, I'm fully functional, and one day I try to open the door and the key drops. It's not my fault. It's something that happens, right? And then, thinking about what Don was saying, sometimes you try to get directions to get somewhere, and probably they give you an address and you ask, well, how do I get there? And they try to tell you, and sometimes you end up with something like, okay, you find a tree with red flowers, and then you turn right, and then you go to the building that is color green, right? If you think about it, sometimes our unconscious drives us that way, right? Pretty much like we do in our everyday lives. So that's something I've been, trying to match in some sessions that are very physical. I mean, like, about locations. And if I try to pinpoint the location, how I'm getting the information, and usually it's like, how would I get there? How do I do that? And that kind of gets me the idea of what Don was saying right now. Probably if you told me that's, I unfortunately I was not able last time to visit Bath, but my brother that has visited many times, he told me about many places. But if he tells me about one building just right away, even if it's a famous building, I probably won't get it the first time, right? So someone has to point it to me how to get there, and then I will get it, right? So just wanted to share that thought because it seems to correlate, and wondering if that's common with anyone else or has happened in some kind of sessions.
So you're saying there's this sort of like air of mystery about how your subconscious communicates.
More than that, more like a verbal part, we do use the same words, but everyone uses a little bit different and try to give context to share the message, right? So in the end, it's a lot of things that compose a message, and two people can get it different. Thus, you can get for the same target different sessions, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks for that, Paolo. I think we should go on to the next hand though, because we're starting to run a little bit out of time, and we need to get Elly on very soon. So, Erica, you had your hand up next.
Thank you. I'll try to share some of my pictures. I'll try to be short, quick. Hold on. Okay, 1 second. Okay, I hope you can see this is the first one. Actually, I was considering not to include this even. The way I did the sessions, I had 5 sessions in total. The target, the news for November, I de-identified it with an average 3 or 2 other targets per session. So I actually didn't know what I would be looking at, and I did it on purpose, not to contaminate myself. And this was kind of my first attempt in looking into news for November. So for that reason, I tried to be as non-subjective as possible. So this one that I actually considered even not including is because when I found out what I was looking at, which was the target for the November news, I was puzzled because what I perceived, as you can see, we have a box which I interpreted as being a stage where somebody is singing a story and people are looking up. People, like, it's a place, it's a concert-like environment where there's some art installation, and it felt kind of pleasant. It felt pleasant, and it was continuous process, meaning it's like it was going on for some time. What I do usually, if you look at the, this is actually, this is not the original. I have the original picture, which is done in pencil, and it'll be really poor quality, and it's written all over the place. So I tried to organize this so it's at least somewhat understandable what I was writing. So there's also some timeline. You can see a horizontal line. I usually center in the very middle, I put the target or the time. I focus, it doesn't matter, it would be this month or the next minute, the feedback I would get, I'm looking at the picture I'm trying to perceive, I'm looking at the picture the way I would see it, whatever that target is. This time I couldn't focus it, I would say, in a few moments, but at least what I did is still I focused at it, and there plus 2 minutes, minus 2 minutes, then I extended and I kind of try to feel the time as to what is happening. How do I feel by moving away in time and before this event that I would see later, sometime later in the picture. And what I did notice before, that there was some instability. There was instability on the ground. I thought concert, what, earthquake, or like I felt instability on the ground. So that's one thing. So I was confused. But anyway, I submitted this. Well, this is what I saw. This is what I perceived. This was under the November news. And then there are some other targets, which I did not, I mean, it's the same target, but from different session, which I didn't pile in the same, like I didn't put the two together because it didn't make sense to me. I'll try to share a second picture, which is, let me see. Okay, this is actually a third one. This is the third one where I'm still not confident that this is linked to the event at the Houston concert, which so it was impression of lots of fire, lots of energetics, and two individuals trying to communicate, trying to work as a team on this. And it was very dynamic. And it was lots of fire, just like in the previous target that I showed you. I saw pretty much a fireplace and very dynamic environment, although it was a kind of like concert art installation environment. And yeah, well, you can kind of read the rest. And for some reason, I perceived lots of oil and machine oil. So I was confused. Is it a festival or it's like a car racing? And when I looked at the other perceptions of other people who submitted, I kind of noticed some also had some perceptions with cars. So I thought, well, like car racing, whatever. But now looking at the pictures from the concert and seeing probably could be part of this installation. And then actually the second one that I wanted to show, also, I guess, no, it is linked to the event in Houston, because otherwise, I mean, it is the same November news. It's just, I was looking at it from a different, I perceived it probably at a different perspective. Okay, it's this one. I thought it's linked to like more mechanical digital thing. But if, I mean, I got an analytical overlay of, is that a panorama wheel, and why people are so drawn to it? Like people would be drawn to it like in like huge crowds, like it's like they would be hypnotized and they would be gathering around it. And then at some point, if you, like the very target of it, the very moment of it, something happens and it kind of like collapses or something. I mean, the first imagination for the picture that came to my mind is that, well, that could collapse and people would be kind of like going under the water, and it would be very slippery for them to get up. And after, it's like almost like a Titanic drowning, you know, it's like where people try to get up and they couldn't get up. And then after all of that settles, like there's the core that remains, like some who was in charge of something, like the core remains. I'm still not sure if this is linked to the to that event in the Houston, but the fact that I was surprised to see panorama wheel next to, I mean, right where the concert area was. So, and I heard from the people that were attending the concert, they felt like they were in the water and they were kind of like drowning because, I mean, they couldn't resist the pressure from other crowds. So if this is linked to that, okay. I'm not gonna, then they had put November News 2 other sessions that kind of, I think were different events. One specifically was pretty much almost copy paste what Aziz had on Farsight. I don't want to discuss it. Let's see how November develops, and maybe when we have more detailed discussions, I'm going to talk about it. So anyway, I shouldn't be analyzing probably my own sessions. That's the conclusion. Thank you.
Thanks for that, and thanks for sharing. What I will do, before we go to the rest of the hands a second, I'll show you something that because some of you guys haven't seen the sessions in the folder because you didn't participate. And in fact, Jules did this graphic. He did some comparisons of the RV sessions. I don't know if Jules wants to actually talk about this anyway. I know he's there with his hands up.
Hello, mate.
Hello there. If I pull your graphic up, do you want to chat quickly about how you came about the analysis and stuff?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I guess you can see my screen here.
Right on. No, I was looking at everybody's sessions, and it occurred to me that there have to be some form of similarities. There have to be some sort of levels of connectedness. And if there's going to be anything specific, if I could look at everyone's session individually and then try and bring out the points that I thought were most poignant, certainly in my mind. It might be different to anybody else, and so I broke it up into lots of different things. I had to look at every session, go over everyone one by one, and then think about various correlations. The first of the base point I had to work with was my own session. A strange thing I did actually find was I came up with the phrase Gatling gun, and someone else actually came up with Gatling gun as well in the session. So there are some unusual connections which people seem to be picking up on. My interpretation of what I'm sort of seeing here, I don't want to put anything down for everybody else's, or to try and to make other people come to conclusions based on my own thoughts. But to me, that the biggest thing that seems to potentially be happening is some form of major landmass disruption, which could be the form of an earthquake or some sort of underground explosion. I don't watch the regular news at all. There were some strange things where people were mentioning explosions underground. Some of the drawings just looked incredibly similar. And it just, well, ultimately, I thought it would interesting to try and make as many connections as we possibly could. The one major connection news-wise I've seen so far is actually Fabian, one of Fabian's, where he mentions a fireball on a road, and I'm not sure if anyone else has seen it, but there was a major fireball in Sierra Leone in a place called Freetown, where a bus had collided with a petrol tanker. And unfortunately, lots of people ran up and they were all trying to collect fuel that was obviously a place of poverty and a great loss. And lots of people ran towards this petrol tanker, and then the petrol tanker blew, becoming this massive fireball. So 100 plus people probably all died in this terrible tragedy. And so just from the analysis of looking at these various things, Fabian's one so far as I've seen it in world news, has been the closest to something which is, fucking hell, that's really quite accurate.
I have another one I can add, Jules. This was sent to me by Dick Algar a day or so ago. A big volcanic eruption, and they saw the cloud from space and stuff as well. It was so big. So yeah.
Okay, because you actually, from memory, you had a visible from space, sort of clouds,
Yeah.
satellite vision. So, yeah, so I think doing this stuff as a group has been absolutely lovely, and then to be able to sort of put things together and get everyone's personal elements that they are picking up. Remote viewing is one of those very, very strange things where certain people are going to pick up certain things and others are going to pick up other elements, and we seem to be tuned in to things which in some way we're closely more closely connected. So yeah, I hope that that picture was useful for
Yeah.
all of you guys anyway. So
Yeah, thanks for putting in the work to do that, because
no worries, man.
that must have taken you quite some time to do.
It's a couple of hours, but I had Corona. Or you can't say Corona while I had it. So there we go.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks for that, Jules.
No worries.
Okay,
Man.
so let's rush through these hands that are out then. Josh, would you like to go next?
Sure, yeah. I'll try and keep it quick here so I don't eat up too much time.
Oh yeah, you're a bit low on your volume, Josh.
Oh, there we go. That should be a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just had I got a lot of construction kind of stuff. The first thing that came up was actually like the Large Hadron Collider, and I kind of drew it here too, just like a big kind of front view of a circular high-tech mechanical kind of thing. And that, like, instantly, that was the very, very first thing that I picked up. And Jules just kind of mentioned it about how, people kind of pick up things based on their personal stuff. And I do a lot of work in construction. So construction and engineering. So I got a whole lot of kind of things related to that. Anyways, at the end of it, I kind of I got I boiled down on some specific construction worker, and the guy was having a bad day. I felt bad for him, but in the end, I kind of figured out that I was getting a combination of sites, I think. So I saw again, just from my knowledge of construction and construction practices and things, like there seemed to be various types of construction going on that you wouldn't necessarily see all in one place. So I was getting cranes and girders and stuff, but I was also getting tunneling and all kinds of weirdness. So what I ended up landing on was that it was probably going to be something about Biden's infrastructure package, which ended up, I think, 3 days later going to a vote and passing. And I think I'd mentioned like in here about it being contentious. I was getting a really strong feeling of whatever this construction thing was going to be contentious, and there'd be a lot of dissonance and things about it, which is why I wrote Highway 413, because that's actually a project near me that's moving ahead too, but is quite contentious. So anyway, I saw an article 3 hours ago on the infrastructure package in the States, and it did pass, and then the GOP senators who voted for it are now getting death threats for voting in favor of it. So anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. This is my first time trying something like this. I've actually just started learning remote viewing about a month ago, and I've as part of my training, I've been guessing what the top story will be in my own local newspaper every day that I can. Usually it's every other day. So it's kind of cool to try this news thing out, but with a group, and see what everybody got. So thanks, Daz, for putting this on, because it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks for that, and thanks for sharing, Josh.
Right on.
Okay, up next, Deborah.
Hi, I'm not going to share my screen because I haven't learned how to do that yet, but I had 3 interesting sessions. I had a race car driver crashing, and I had the car with a number 5, and it was really interesting because the ideogram kind of looks like the shape of the driver's head, and that part of the ideogram was actually his head. And there's a woman and a baby in the ideogram, And when I started to look up upcoming races in November, I found a race car driver with a blonde wife and a baby, like the one I had seen. And he was in this NASCAR championship race, but he wasn't car number 5. It was Kyle Larson that was car number 5. So I was really happy to see that they raced on Sunday and he won and there was no crash, because my forecast was that he was going to crash and not survive. So I actually started praying for the guy and, I couldn't help myself. So I'm not sure if that's a hit or a miss, because I don't know anything about racing, and I kind of hit the 5 on the car and the driver, but luckily, and I'm thankful that he didn't crash. So that's kind of cool. And then I had another ideogram that looks like a table with 2 chairs and 2 people sitting at the table, one with his head on the table and the other kind of leaning over him. And there's a little computer stand, like the ideogram draws this out. And as I felt through the ideogram, it's a story of someone getting on a plane, flying across a large body of water to traditional style building, like an old type church. And I say it's like a state church, probably like Catholic or Anglican, not a more modern type church. It had, stone, you could feel the stone arches. And then the ideogram took me into the office with the table and the chairs and the 2 men seated at the table. One of them is quite distraught. The other one's very angry. And I've come across a story in the Canadian news that it looks like there's going to be a delegation of Aboriginals going to the Vatican in December to discuss an apology. So I'm wondering if that might have something to do with that story. And then my third ideogram was a drawing of La Palma, and it was like a tour of La Palma. So I started up on sort of a rocky cliff, and I kind of went down and sort of went down to the beach and then up into the volcano. And then I followed this river of lava down again to the harbor where there was a red boat. And I found the red boat in Bushcraft Bear YouTube videos. The way he pans across the island from his vantage point is a lot like the view I was getting from my ideogram. And he had shot of the red boat that I was hearing people shouting from. It's a rescue boat. And I was seeing, a lot of volcanic activity. And then I had that word rivers really kind of hit me from the ideogram, and I felt it very strongly, the word rivers. And I found again on YouTube the title of one of the videos for the volcano had rivers of lava. And I was thinking, like, in terms of what Dawn was saying, when you get those words that stand out, I kind of agree. It may be because of the bandwidth, but sometimes I'm wondering if it's not because the word ends up in the news. And so it's printed. And maybe that's why it comes through a little bit more strongly than just a descriptive word or an AOL, because it's a word that's printed on the paper in the future, Like his word for the baseball, it was printed on the magazine where he was looking. So I feel like I had some hits, already. And I stopped at 3 because I just want to keep it simple. But I did feel motivated to do more. So maybe next time I'll try a few more. So thanks for listening.
Thanks for that, Deborah. Thanks for sharing. Jules, you still have your hand up. Is there anything you wanted to add other than when I dragged you in? I guess not then. Let's move on to Cedric then. Cedric, you're up next.
Yep, thanks. Just let me share because I think I already had a feedback for my session. I'll not take too much time. Just to show you my session first, which I had here. I had something, I don't know if you can see it right now here. I had some metallic object, which felt like either a submarine or a plane at first. But I had airspeed, something metallic, and the fastness of it was the speed, the rapidity was there, air resistance. So I got for an airplane with one wing or so, maybe a submarine, but it felt that it was on a mission to save someone or something, but it had to be fast. The time was the essence. And finally, what was very interesting in my session is that I had something that feeling that mission was important, that the crew didn't have to waste time. They had time to think about something else. It felt very militaristic. It was mission first, no time to think, concentration, some very mechanic thoughts, procedures, go after the flight plan steps, follow the steps 1, 2, 3. Very few people present in the vehicles, maybe 1 to 5. So a limited crew. Mission was important. Time was of the essence. There, I started to do something that looked like the cockpit, and there was a sense of a danger, of observation as well, controlling, protecting homeland, and secure moments. There is just not enough time, and those feelings. And then I was trying to have a map and figure out where that was taking place, and it felt like it was in this South China Sea area. That was the day. The day of my session was really the deadline for us, so the last day, and 2 days later we had this in the news, where WC-135 spy plane was found surveying South China Sea, because there was apparently a submarine that was stuck in the South China Sea, and they had to send this nuclear sniffing plane in the atmosphere to see and check if there was some leakages that arise from the submarine. So the US sent this plane to survey, and I looked at the format of the plane and also the cockpit, and I thought I might have here feedback of what I saw. So I just wanted to share this, that this was apparently one of the first news of the month that we got on. So that's it.
Excellent, Cedric. Thanks for sharing that one. Well done, guys. Don, go for it.
All right, this is going to go fast. I wanted to respond to Jules, actually. And Jules, that was really neat what you did. I really liked that. This is one of 2 sessions I sent Des, and because of what he just showed from Dick Allgaier about that eruption, a rocky landmass will experience a sudden violent upheaval, shaking, scary ground rolling, and huge displacement of solid material in the air, severely reducing visibility, then transitioning to complete calm. I kept thinking like, this is La Palma, but, I did have, volcanic and rolling and whatever. And I had asked Des to remove these sessions because the other one, they were in a zip file, and the other one would give, if it happens, an unfair bargaining position. And I didn't want that to be revealed. So anyway, this is the first one, and it did seem to match up with what Dick was talking about.
Okay, yeah, that's great, Don. To be honest, I don't look at the news for any of my targets, like until the end of the month when I'm doing the news. It's just that Dick and other people sent me some of this stuff, and some of our subs on Patreon send me stuff as well. But the volcano, I can send you this. I can show you this. Look, it's an ongoing situation with that volcano because this is this is today, and they've put out advisory warnings to anyone in the area because of the emissions of the ash plume so big and so dangerous for them and stuff. So it could just be that, which like everyone's here, we're gonna have to wait to the end of the month. But yeah, just be aware that big volcano is going off with one of the hugest ash clouds that has been seen so far from a volcano.
Okay, and the thing that I was sort of waiting for with mine was, my prediction was that this was going to happen and then stop completely. I was waiting for either La Palma to do that. Mount Etna blew up also. I didn't know whether that one was going to stop. But, I was waiting for something where it was really going to blow up and then stop. So anyway, that's all I got.
We shall see. Excellent. So let's go with Jim then for the last question or comment on the news predictions, and then we'll move to the presentation.
Well, just a quick, I guess, kind of question or thought, and maybe Daz, you could help with this, or maybe some others. But and I'm a beginner, so just thinking through this, it was really hard being front loaded. But a lot of times our sessions have a lot of ambiguity, and so to your point, Daz, about the method you just talked about, not looking at the news, I'm finding myself looking at the news, and I'm thinking about selection bias, right? Am I just there's so many things going on in the world. Am I looking at this and going, oh, okay, here's my session? So I was wondering, I was reading through McDonald's book and talking about where they're actually using map dowsing. Mm-hmm. So they're trying to figure out a location for some of the events. And I'm wondering, have we ever experimented with that, or some of you who are doing this more often? It feels like that has a lot of utility if we could actually say, we think it's going to be happening in this region. So yeah, just a question or thought.
Yeah, definitely try to get a location for these events if you can. It's new to a lot of you, so you're just gonna have to learn as you go along, really. Just be aware, you're right with the selection as well. You can, I probably did this myself when I first did the first few prediction targets. You kept an eye on the news because you wanted to verify your target. But just bear in mind that the actual target for this was top global news. So, anything you match up at the end of the month with your RV data should really be in multiple, top news sources, BBC, CNN, NBC, that kind of stuff. It should be reported quite heavily over a period of days for in my opinion, for it to qualify as top global news. So just bear that in mind, really.
Thank you, Daz, and thanks for putting this together.
Yeah. Well, if you guys like it, and if you want to carry on, we can also. We can quickly, roughly talk about it now. But if you like it, we can always do other ones. This, maybe even do it once a month if you guys want to. Okay then. So, Erica, did you want to add one last thing to add to this before we move on?
Yes, thank you very much. Very great suggestion for another month, and just make it a regular. That would be great fun for us and practice. And the second thing, the target, it was your intent. You gave us the target, so you were the tasker. So it's not my news information. It's sources. It's yours, because the target was given by you, and the tasker, which I guess was you, that was my focus.
Yeah, at the end of the month, if you guys want, I could actively go out and try to pick the top say 10 news sources that Google say were the top news in the month and put them out there as most probable.
Yeah. Can I just add something 1 minute on that? At first I looked at Daz's target number, and it had as all of Daz's target signals, they are incredible. I don't know why. Really strong signal, but I decided for whatever reason I was going to use my own session index as the target number, because I figured I was going to do 3 of them, 1, 2, and 3. So I was labeling them differently, and the signal was different. So whatever I was feeling from Daz's signal was extremely different from what I got when I pretty much tasked it for myself. So that's an interesting point. So I got something else than what I would have gotten from Daz's number.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Anita. Okay, so let's move on to Elly Molina then. I'm really interested to hear the presentation. I've heard great things about this and her recent presentation did for IRVA. So welcome, Elly.
Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great to have you here. So would you like to give a brief talk about who you are and your, or would you like me to give us a quick overview that I nabbed from the IRVA website?
It's up to you. So I can, why don't you, if you want to read it, that's okay. If it's too long, I will just briefly talk a little bit about myself and
you go for it. It was always better if it comes from you.
All right. So thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Some of you know me from the International Remote Viewing Conference. Some of you know me from Marty and Applied Precognition. So I came into the remote viewing community in 2015 and really felt as if I had found my home. I am a psychic, I'm an intuitive, I read for celebrities, public figures, political figures, and then I also read for people who are just, not just, seekers, all right? So it's not just the celebrities that come, but it's anybody who's interested in getting readings. But that wasn't always what I did. I spent 37 years in the classroom as a classroom teacher, predominantly middle school, but I have done all ages also. And it was during the years of teaching that I really started looking to develop psychic abilities in children, because we all know that everyone's psychic and we all know that we can do this. And it was so apparent in the classroom when I was working with the kids, how easy it was for them to have telepathic hits and do psychic things. And then that it was always a passion, and it started to grow and grow. But I really felt that the world wasn't quite ready. I didn't feel it. The world wasn't quite ready for this. And they're still not. So as the years went by, I started developing the programs a little bit as much as I possibly could. And then by 2005, that's when The Secret came out. People are familiar with The Secret, Law of Attraction. So when The Secret came out, I was still teaching New York City inner school. And I said to myself, if The Secret can come out on TV, I'm going to talk to the kids about law of attraction and start doing manifestations and things like that. And then our test scores were so high the following year that it was almost like that movie Stand and Deliver, where the administration came into the room and said, what's going on in this classroom? Are you feeding the kids the answers to these tests? And I'm like, no, we're just doing affirmations. We're manifesting, we're creating, we're seeing things. And so it took a little talking, but then one day my principal said to me, I'm going to give you a year to do a course. It's an enrichment program. It's called, and I named it The Power to Create. And I met with seventh grade students for 1 year. We had 20 people in the classroom, and the things that we accomplished, we did blindfolded work, we did drawing and targets and being able to just do amazing telepathic things, even a little telekinesis, not telekinesis really in terms of that, but just the telepathic experiences that we started to have and the remote viewing, it was just really incredible. So now I was on fire with this. And as an educator, I needed to go teach this, and an opportunity presented itself in Washington State, where then I was able to go teach in Washington and at what I call the magic school. Here's where we did remote viewing, we did blindfolded archery, we did telekinesis, and we also did telepathic experiments and played around in the classroom with all of this stuff. And it was really wonderful. And then when that school went under, because we didn't have enough finances, a group of parents and myself then created our own school. And if you don't mind, I'm going to start sharing some slides at this moment, okay? Just give me a second. And all right, let's see if I can do, I still haven't mastered this in terms of, presentations. Anyway, I created, let's put it into presenter mode and wish me luck, okay? I created Sci Kids Academy, and it's been in the works for many, many years. And I finally got it together last year, but basically this year. And so let's see if we got the next slide over here. No. All right, excuse me, people. I'm having a glitch. I'm gonna have to go back the old fashioned way, and you'll just bear with me. I apologize. All right, so I created scikids.com, Make Magic Happen. It's an online program. Back in the day, this goes back to show you, this was in 2010, where we started creating the magic school that we put together. And these children are little. This is back in 2010. You can see these kids are really tiny. And we started doing remote view work with them. We started doing focus exercise. We started doing telepathic exercises. And back in the day, before mindfolds, if everybody that works in this arena, we're all using these now. Most people are using the mindfolds, but we didn't have them yet because they weren't around. So we just had the kids blindfolded like this. And then this is a little boy who started to do this for the first time. And like I said, these slides are old. So this is older stuff right now, but he was so excited about doing this work. He felt so zen and so calm, and he was able to see, I don't have his work right now in front of me because a lot of people that have seen it, it's old, it's really old. The pictures are losing their color already, but they went on to draw what they saw in my treasure chest, which I use, and I'll show that to you in a little bit. But they went on to draw what they saw, and they had amazing results with this. And then again, I used the treasure chest with a group of other children, older kids. Again, these are older photos. This is from back in the day. And the kids had remarkable results, and it was always a lot of fun, a lot of wonderful hits. So just recently, I created a program which is called Make Magic Happen. It's psychic intuitive development for children, where I actually walk kids and their adults through remote viewing, telepathy, and exercises, and focus and concentration. So now, last year, it was during COVID, I was doing a psychic development program for adults, and I was doing it online. And some of you have seen this photo, this image, because I just find this image incredible. So there was a target. It was an image of Jon Snow. He was hidden in an envelope behind my screen. So this was all on the computer. So people were unable to see what was on my screen. They just had a picture of a manila envelope. And one of the participants had her 5-year-old son walk by and look at her screen. And he sees a manila envelope and says, "Mom, what's that?" And she said, "Well, there's a picture in the envelope and I'm going to draw it." She goes, "Do you want to draw also?" And so he's like, "Sure." So he sits down and starts to draw this figure. Now, he uses the words, he can't write, so he tells his mother that it is power and a dragon. So now, anybody who's familiar with Game of Thrones and knows who Jon Snow is, we know that Jon, I don't want to, in case you haven't seen it, I'm not going to give away the ending, but so if we all know what Jon Snow is capable of, we do know that he is a man of power and there are dragons. And I mean, the fact that this child was 5 years old, we're not talking about artistic abilities, power and dragon, again, the hair, holding this version of a sword, stick figure, the feet here. When you think about it, it's too accurate to be coincidental, especially in the work that we do. So again, I encouraged her to continue doing this work with her child. Then last year during COVID season, Marty from Applied Precognitive and I got together and we created a joint project online for parents and their children. Marty did the remote viewing with the adults and I worked with the children. And the hidden object behind the manila envelope was a cupcake. And this little girl, she's 8 years old at the time. And you could see here, she has a date and she said cupcake. Now, when you think about it, the object could have been anything. It could have been a dinosaur, it could have been a book, but she wrote cupcake. And then I just loved how she was able to see the pink on here. Yeah, she added a few other colors to it, but that doesn't matter. She could have drawn a dinosaur. And then she had here the candles and pink, and it was the cupcake. And I was like, this was really an amazing remote view for someone who has never done this work before. Now, I didn't have to convince anybody in the remote viewing community that these things are possible and that children can all do this, and not just children, but adults can do this as well. So it doesn't take any convincing in a community that knows, not even believes in this, but knows that this phenomena is real. So it's bringing this awareness now to a larger audience. And so one of the ways that I do this is by teaching. We start in the Sci-Kids Academy. I really start with concentration and focus, because when a child can focus, and I call it tucking away their body, when we can tuck away our body and not itch and scratch, we can start to focus more on going deeper, seeing things, connecting. Children are naturally in the alpha state, so it becomes really easy for them. However, by teaching children how to focus and how to concentrate, so many other skills are learned. Emotional intelligence is learned. These problems that we encounter in the classroom, ADD, ADHD, all of this stuff can be, I'm going to say, circumvented, because of the fact that children are taught now in a program the way that I'm teaching them to be able to tuck away and focus there and concentrate on a flame, beginning with 10 seconds to children can do this up to 30 minutes. Some of the adults that I work with do this up to an hour. And we know what happens to our brains when we do an hour of not moving and we're focused on a candle, where we can go. And so the kids can reach these states much quicker, as long as they can practice tucking away their bodies, and then the amazing things that just show up for them. And like I said, I don't have to convince anybody over here. So part of the work that I do, a large part of the work that I do, involves not just the phenomena. It is not about the phenomena. It is about teaching the skills that go to learn the phenomena that can then be applied in everyday life. So focus, concentration, then the emotional intelligence that is necessary to understand, I got a hit, I didn't get a hit. There's a lot of emotional components that go into doing targets and to getting results. There's a lot of ego. There are a lot of skills that need to be developed in order to be really successful. And the more that you start to teach, the more that I teach this, and the earlier that I start working with the children, the faster it is for them to acquire higher levels of emotional intelligence. And we all know that the qualities of leadership and working better together with other people on the planet is a high level of emotional intelligence. I teach the children to begin by creating their day. In the creation of their day, these are a few moments where they close their eyes before they get out of bed, and they then remote view their day. So what does it look like to remote view your day? You close your eyes and you go into your imagination and you see possible things that start to play around. A little bit different than creative visualization. This is in the creating of your day. You There are two skills involved. One, intentionally set intentions for how your day is going to go. And then children also start to look for things that they may come across. So they may find something yellow. They may come across a cup, or, it depends on, I'm just using very basic examples. However, the older that the children are, the easier it is for them to create their day, and the levels of creating their day become more powerful and more intense. So I've got some stories over here to share also. Here we have a beautiful young girl. She looks like a woman over here, but she's really a young girl. And many of you may know her because she started doing this work when she was very early. And her name is Michaela Russell, and she is the star of Young Wanda. She is Young Wanda in the Marvel series, WandaVision. And Michaela and I we met many years ago this is her when she was little. We met in 2017, I believe it was, when she was given a copy of my book, Annabelle and the Domino, which is the true story of a little girl who actually moved a domino with her mind. And since that time, I've had 3 children who have performed telekinesis in my presence. And so with Annabelle and the Domino over here, this is based on a true account. There have been some children that have been able to do telekinesis. It does take a lot of practice. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of focused energy. And not everybody is able to do this, not even adults, because we don't have the patience and the perseverance to sit through what it takes to make that object move. So anyway, getting back to Michaela started reading Annabelle and the Domino, and then she just continued to focus on some of her dreams. And we're going to circle back and talk a little bit about her later, because to me, she's a prime example of a recent, what I call Sci Kids in the Sci Kids family. And one of the advantages of teaching children to do this is they start to trust their gut. They trust their intuition, and they start to hear and heed their inner voice. They're curious, they're engaged, they can focus their attention, they take initiative, and they can stand up for themselves. When a child knows, if you think back to it, if you're a child, or even you right now, we as adults, we know that our confidence level rises when we know that we can remote view. We know that we have these incredible powers that we use, and we have access to this. And when a child has access to their own intuitive abilities and their own remote viewing powers, this gives them a voice also. It allows them to gain more confidence than children who just don't have these, who are not taught that they do not have these abilities. And then what ends up happening is that if they never discover these hidden skills, they begin to conform. They become insecure. There's a disconnect. There's resignation. There's mediocrity. And we know this from, some of our own lives, that we know what life can be like when we're conforming and insecure and disconnected, et cetera, et cetera. We see this. And what happens also is that many children have this, I'm going to read to the slide too, but many children have this quenchless thirst for approval, and there's a tendency to bend to other agendas. And this can sour into cynicism, resentment, anxiety, and despair. And this lasts into adulthood. And one of the biggest reason why I do this is because I know that we don't teach children to be psychic. I show them how to use, anyone can do this, how to use their natural ability to see what others are blind to, and to so do be curious, confident, and entirely self-possessed. So limits are learned, possibility is explored. So I want to talk a little bit about young Wanda for a few moments, okay? For people who are familiar with young Wanda, she does telekinesis. And when we think about the synchronicities, when Michaela, before she became young Wanda, many, many years before, was actually sitting there holding the book and reading all about a young girl who performed telekinesis. And then fast forward, a few years later, she herself becomes the young Wanda, who now is performing telekinesis on the screen. And one of the ways that I teach telekinesis is that I'm sorry, I'm getting a little distracted here. Something just popped into the thing up here. One moment. One of the ways that I teach remote viewing is I have this treasure chest. Back in the day when I used to do in-person workshops, I would actually bring the treasure chest into the room, and there would be an object in there or a photo, and then the children would sit there and they would put on their blinders and start to look into the treasure chest and then draw what they see. And the results, of course, were always really remarkable. And so today, again, this is Michaela and her brother Brasher. Audra's her mom, and I'm going to invite them on in a few minutes, if that's okay with you, Daz, to have Audra talk a little bit about what happened here. So today I was talking to Audra, and Audra said to me, you know what, I asked her a few questions. I said, do you have any of those old photos where Michaela was, reading the telekinetic book, and then all of a sudden she became young Wanda? She's been working her third eye, is like I call it, her third eye, her affirmation. She's working her manifesting abilities, her remote viewing. Do you have any photos? And Audra said, yes. I said, do you have any photos of them doing anything recent? And she goes, no, but we'll do something today. And so earlier today, then Audra had the children sit down and put on their blinders and do a remote view. And then here was the target. And this was Brasher's remote view. You can see over here, there's a star. To me, this is a star, close enough, you know what I mean? Hey, this could have been a dinosaur for all we know, right? And so this is the kind of work that gets done. And, can you imagine his feeling of happiness when he knows that he could have been drawing a tree or a dinosaur, but this is what he did, and this was the hit. And to have this ability, to have this confidence, to have this knowledge at this early age is such a gift. So anyway, if you're interested, and I'm going to talk a little bit more and answer some questions, but if you're interested, best way to reach me is at my website, which is ellymolina.com, and then the scikidsacademy.com/magic. And yeah, so I'm going to leave the screen share and start talking like I haven't been right now. But if anybody has any questions, because there's so much in this, Daz, there's so much wealth in this that, I could go through this and spend hours. One of the things that I do with the kids that we practice also when I'm working with them is we use smiley face cards or a plain deck of cards. I don't know if you can see this.
Yep.
Anyway, okay, so I use these cards, and then what we do is we start to put our hands on the card, we close our eyes, put on the blinders, and then we write down, we keep track of the suit, the number, and then what the card will be. And you would be surprised that over time, how many children are able to do many of these numbers. I will tell you the highest number of success that I ever had was 11 cards in a row. That was suit and number. And my ego kicked in at that time, because as soon as I hit like 11 cards, I got scared is really what happened. Like, oh my God, can I do this again? And then, the identity kicked in, the ego kicked in, and it was over. It was gone. And have never been able to do 11 of them again in a row. I can get about 3 to 4 right now before that feeling kicks in again, like, oh my God. But anyway, we do that. We use blinders to do a lot of the work. And then there are lots of different exercises in the programs that I have that are now on the program that's now online, and in the courses and the workshops that I do. So this is part of it. Again, my focus is not just to remote view. My focus is to develop the higher levels of consciousness and emotional intelligence that is necessary, in my opinion, to do this work and to do this work really well. Okay, questions.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. That was fantastic. About the courses you do at the moment, are they? I just want to, if we can discuss those so that people can understand. So they're on. Are they all online at the moment? And do they come through you, or do we go through a third party like an education service or anything to get to the courses?
No, well, thanks for asking that. So I'm going to put the link here. Okay, that's probably, this is the link, and the course, I have put this course together. And I saw over here, what's the youngest age? I'm going to say 3 years old, but only for focus. All right. So but that would not for the activities. A child needs to want to do some of these activities. The children need to learn to sit. So in order to do this, I'm going to share a little bit about when Marty and I were doing the program together. Many of the adults signed their children up because the adults wanted to do the program. And so what I've done in the Sci-Kids program is kind of worked it so the adults can participate in it also. And the children who wanted to do the work, again, you saw like that little girl with the cupcake. She was an active participant. She wanted to do this work. She was very excited about doing this work. There was one little boy who didn't really want to do the work. And so I don't have any of his photos. He just basically used words. Now, sometimes he had hits, but he didn't really want to be doing it. And that again is the energy, the father wanted him to do it so much, but the child was so resistant to it that nothing was going to happen, There is, wait, hold on. I got some questions here. Mandatory in school. I would love to see some of this work done in school. And the reason why I say that is just because of the level of emotional intelligence that is necessary. I just did a recent talk with somebody she asked me about age. She runs a training service, and we talked about ADD and ADHD. And we also know that if children were taught to focus, really focus, we're not taught how to focus. We tell other people, focus, but were we ever officially taught how to focus? I only learned when I was 19 and I did transcendental meditation, and that's, this is what it looks like to focus, to sit and to concentrate and not move our bodies. That takes a lot of skill. No one teaches us that. And in the classrooms, your teachers don't teach this. They'll just give you medication and, label you, give the kid medication so the kid doesn't become a problem. And I'm looking at that from an education that I'm coming from an educational point of view, inner city schools. So, this is a really big circle about, nutrition, what they eat, focus, concentration, educators needing to know this information. Also, you can only teach according to the way that you're taught and what you know. And if you don't know any differently, you can't teach any better than the way that you've been taught. And so, there's just a couple of questions. The youngest age, I'm going to say probably for this kind of work, Candle Focus is really great. And you don't need to be in the Sci-Kids Academy to do that or anything. You could start there. But the activities, really getting into the remote views, that can be done at age 5. Depending on your child, and if they're excited about doing it, you can start doing it at age 4. Now, I also believe, and this is a personal belief of mine, that this work begins with the parents. It begins before the child is born. It begins in conversation. It begins in a conversation of what is possible. I have a 2.5-year-old grandson. I talk to him all the time about what is possible and what we can do. Now, he doesn't even understand probably half of what I'm talking about, but I'm priming him. I'm getting him ready so that in a year from now or a couple of months from now, he's going to sit and start doing exercises and activities with me. I read him Annabelle and the Domino about telekinesis. So I am prepping him for this is what's possible. This is no longer oh yeah, really, I don't believe that kind of stuff. This is real. And okay. Oh, interesting, Ida. Her children were taught focus as toddlers, and they started school. They were shamed out of, yes. And I wanted a lot of topics on this one. I just wrote a newsletter about the lights going out in children's eyes. And one of the things that I've noticed is the light does go out. The light in their eyes becomes dull when they're in elementary school. And what does it take to bring that light back? And I've noticed that the light can come back when I teach them remote viewing, when their parents teach them remote viewing, when their parents teach them telepathy, when they have that power within, the light comes back on. Okay. And
we have a hand up from Jim as well, who's had his hand up for a while.
Okay. All right.
Jim.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Elly, thank you so much for speaking to us, and thank you for your work on this. I think it's really important. I'm just curious, for some of us as adults who came to remote viewing, sometimes accidentally, is kind of an epistemological crisis, if you will. You start to discover you have all these capabilities and maybe things aren't what you thought they were. And I'm just curious, in your experience with kids, it seems like maybe that for us, we've been encultured for so many years to think a certain way, but maybe children haven't. So in your experience with children, do they struggle when they see that they have these capabilities, or is it just become very natural to them, that no conflict or friction when they see that?
There's excitement when they see it. So I'm just gonna, again, depending on the background where they come from. Now, obviously, the children who come to me, their parents are very open. Otherwise, they wouldn't be coming to me and we wouldn't be having these conversations. And so the kids are excited by what they can do. This is really wonderful. They're very happy. And then a very interesting thing happened, Jim, just to give you an aside. When I wrote my book, Annabelle and the Domino, and this is a true story. I don't know if anybody knows Betsy Chassey. She is the director of the creator of What the Bleep. So if anybody remembers that movie, What the Bleep, well, Betsy is one of my friends, and I taught her daughter back in our magic school. And when I wrote Annabelle and the Domino, and I sent Betsy a copy of it for her daughter's response was, "Oh, this is boring. Everybody can do this." And I was like, whoa, yeah, okay, because her daughter had been exposed to this kind of work. So this was now what somebody else would look at, Jim, as unbelievable. This is fake stuff. This is not real. Betsy's daughter said, yeah, this is boring. Anybody can do this, right? Okay, so different perspective of the way that children are raised and learned. And I'm not sure I answered your question, but I do know that kids get really excited about this work and the levels of confidence increase.
Thank you so much. It sounds like a much more positive experience sometimes than if you're an adult and you've had 20 or 30 years being led to believe certain things that may not be true.
Yeah, well, I always look at it like this. By doing this work, we don't have to do all that unprogramming later. We don't have to do all that therapy to believe in ourselves. We don't have to do all of that work, loving ourselves and believing that we're capable of so much more, when we intuitively know from birth that we are capable of so much more. We know these things, and then that knowing is knocked out of us by maybe well-meaning parents, educators, society. And so these kids know that this is there. And I'm going to just, if it's okay, I'd like to invite Audra to speak a little bit, because Audra has raised 2 Sci kids. And, oh yeah, Don, there's a comment, and I'm not able to do 2 things like at the same time. So while I'm talking, I won't be able to read that right now, Don, but I will in a minute. All right. So I'd like to introduce Audra, if that's okay, Daz, really quickly. And Audra is the mom of 2 incredible actors, Brasher and Michaela. And Audra has done this work for many years. And so I'm going to let her talk about what it was like to raise these 2 children, one of whom is now a really well-known child actress. Hi, Audra. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Elly. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, good. Sometimes my headphones give me trouble. Yeah, first of all, both of my kids love talking to you and working with you. Michaela's right over here, so she may jump in and say hi too. She's back here working on something.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah, but I want to say what you were saying about kids in elementary school and middle school. It's so true. I used to go to school to meet my kids for lunch, and I would walk around while kids were walking down the hallway, and in their eyes, I would just see so many kids just didn't look happy, and I didn't understand what it was. I didn't know if it was what type of food they're eating, if it was too much technology, or just an unhappy home. I don't know, but we try to maintain a positive environment where our kids are keeping their imaginations and creativity wide open. And so what was it, 5 years ago at least, there was an article about my kids in a magazine, and you had an article in there at the same time. And I read it and I had to contact you. We've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was going to ask you a question. If you can share remember when I had my old website where Michaela and Brasher were remote viewing, and they would look in the treasure box, and then they would draw their remote views, and there were times where they were highly accurate, and I don't have any of those images anymore because that was on an old computer.
Yeah, I still have them, I'm sure. I'll resend them to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, one was so clear. Michaela showed it to me, and they both wanted to do it. So I had them go in their separate rooms with quiet space, and they came out and showed me their drawing. And Michaela drew a golden pineapple with a jagged top, and the image was a crown. And so I told her, I said, you drew gold, with a yellow pineapple gold, and the crown, I think it was gold, and it had the edges on the top like that. But she used the word pineapple, but she was still seeing the general shape and outline of what was in the box. And then Brasher, I think you had a puppy dog. It was either a teddy bear or a puppy dog, a dog. And he drew a little white teddy bear. He called it a teddy bear. I don't know if it was a dog or a teddy bear, but it looked quite similar to what you had in the box. So we've been doing it just for fun. I like to do it with them because it helps keep their mind clear. I'm not out there telling them you can go manifest whatever you want. You can go, I'm more about keeping their spirit clear and open so that they can see and know what's right for them. And then that way they have that meditative state where they're receiving that higher guidance that can lead them to know what's the best path for them. Because I don't ever want to tell her, okay, Michaela, go and wish for this movie or wish for that role, because that may not be the best path for her. And that's, happened in the past before. We've had her booked. She was down to her and what other girl for a role. And then we know what's meant for her will come. And the same with Brasher. And then sure enough, she didn't get that one particular role. But if she had gotten it, she would have missed being able to audition for Marvel, which was a huge love of hers, and then that goes back to that one of those beginning conversations you and I had. It was when she first started acting, she wanted to learn and she didn't know anything about acting. We had no family, no friends in the business. So I said, okay, well, let's do background work. Let's go on set and see how a set runs. And it happened the first call we got to be on set for was Marvel. And they asked her if she could be a photo double for Ant-Man's daughter on Ant-Man and the Wasp. So it was good training. And then she got called in and asked to do, help set up camera tests and lighting. And it was a great education for her. And she knew she wanted to do it. She fell in love. And so that last day on set, because a lot of Marvel stuff is filmed here in Atlanta. And we got home that last day on set, and there were 2 books waiting for me on the table. One was for Michaela and one was for me. And it was your book that you had sent her, Annabella the Domino. And we were just laughing because it was so interesting. It was fun, a fun book. Well, fast forward, 4 years later? And here she ended up getting booked as young Wanda, which is the young Scarlet Witch in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And Scarlet Witch is known for telepathy and telekinesis. Now, the interesting part is when we auditioned for that, we didn't know what we were auditioning for. Marvel does not put details in what this role is. So we got an audition. It was called an unnamed Marvel SVOD, a streaming project. And it didn't name the characters. It was a set of dummy sides, and she knew she wanted to be back at Marvel, so she did it. All we knew is that she had to be either Russian or Eastern European with an accent. We didn't know either, but she figured it out. She made it happen. It was a lot of work, but she did it. So 2 months later, we got the call saying that they want to see her again. And then we found out she did book it. And that's when we found out what exactly she was auditioning for. And that's when we found out she was going to be the young Wanda, or Scarlet Witch, the young Scarlet Witch. And my question was, who's Scarlet Witch? Because I didn't really watch Marvel. And both my kids looked at me with their eyes wide open, like, you don't know who Scarlet Witch is? And they explained to me that she's known for the Mind Stone and telepathy and telekinesis. And so the joke in our house was, oh, just like my mom's friends. So she fell right into the role because she hears, we talk with you and some of our other friends who are very much like us. So it was fun and very synchronistic. And that's where the higher world meets this world.
Yeah, thanks, Audra. Thank you.
Thank you, Elly.
And I really wanted to Audra to share her story because she's been using this work with the children and practicing. And they're not to say that, hey, if you've got kids and grandkids, they're all going to go off and become actors, but there is, or famous, but there is a level of confidence that gets instilled in children when they know that they have these incredible abilities and that they can use them. So, any questions? And right here. Questions? Any questions?
Everyone's a bit shy.
I won't be shy. I've got a question.
Go for it, David.
It probably wouldn't be possible for my kids to attend your course, but I'm wondering if there are. Do you have a book with exercises in, or could you suggest some exercises that I could do with my kids?
Well, the course is online. That's number one. So if you have a computer, anybody can do it. I've set it all up so that that's available. If they have computer access, they can do the course if that's possible. Otherwise, there are some exercises that I have. I did write a book in 2017. It was an Amazon bestseller. It's called Children Who Know How to Know, and that's available on Amazon. And there are exercises in there. They're not the same kind of remote viewing. They're exercise. Yeah, it's pretty much
I'm a remote viewer, so
right. So you know how to do this.
Yeah, but in terms of exercises that are not necessarily directly Sci, but are going to be good for the kids and give them a foundation for that kind of thing. You mentioned candle focus. Is there other stuff?
So there's a lot of other stuff, and there's mindfulness and there's intuitive heart, and I have that in the book Children Who Know How to Know. I actually have the script for ways to access intuitive heart with children, because I use that in the classroom when I was helping children with autism. When I was working with autistic children, we did a lot of the intuitive heart exercises, tapping into the heart, accessing the heart, and then of course taking that a little bit further into being able to see remote viewing also. So again, it was in a way of accessing. Then the exercises in the book, again, it's not about the phenomena. And David, as you said, you're a remote viewer, so you can do all the work. You can do the remote viewing and all of that. The exercises that are in my book set the groundwork for language that we use with children, language to lose with children. It begins to develop the emotional intelligence. So there's chapters on thought and language, words, intuition, intuitive development, the heart, the brain. So there are different exercises towards the end of the book, which talk about out-of-body experiences and taking it a little bit further, telekinesis, telepathy. Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. Thank you. I've just bought the book, so I look forward to reading it. Isn't Amazon great?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don has his hand up next. If you want to go next, Don.
Okay, yeah. I want to do this, with my grandkids, right? So here's the thing. I got one parent, which is my daughter. She's totally plugged into the remote viewing scene, what I'm doing, all of this stuff, right? The other parent is not so much. Need to do something that can break into this situation and sort of get started. What am I doing here? Am I buying a book or am I going online? What do I need to do?
Oh, thank you, Don. I'm seriously going to suggest I did a 16-page free brochure that is an introduction to this work that you can do with ages 3 to 99. And this does not, this is so easy stuff that even a parent who doesn't want you to remote view or do any of this work would entertain this kind of work because it's fun. And so the free brochure is available at SciKidsAcademy.com, and then it is downloadable. You get it, and then you have 16 pages of activities to do with children ages, whenever, since the time they can walk until 99, so for the child and all of us. So those are available there if you didn't get that. So you could do these activities with them. They're really fun. And this way, these activities, Don, are not going to interfere with parents who still have challenges believing that these things are real, if that makes any sense.
That does make a lot of sense. Thank you very much.
I'm just going to share this. I have 3 sons. 2 sons have children. One of my sons welcomes when his mother comes over, because I'm supposed to be teaching them how to shoot fireballs out of my hands. Okay. That is, I don't know how to do that yet. All right. But the point is that my son is open. He can't wait for me to come over and be teaching my grandson. And my other son is like, what are you saying to him? What are you talking about with him? Like, in other words, don't talk about your stuff, okay? Don't talk about magic. Don't use that word. And I was like, okay, we'll see you later. We're going off for a walk now.
Okay.
All right. So there's ways we can work around this, Don. That's why I wrote that book brochure.
All right. I'm going to download that and let's see what happens next. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before we move on to the next question, I just wonder if I could ask one. Have you seen with the children you've worked with, is there a gender bias to who, the gender that takes on this faster or better? Is there a bias in any way?
No. I'm going to tell you, and if there is, I find that the girls are intuitive. Something may happen in our educational system that messes with them a little bit, because I've been following my IRVA presentation. I followed some of the kids, and I have to tell you, the guys who are now in their 20s use this more than the girls have used it. Now, I'm not sure what happened or why or what the story is about that, and if it's just an individual thing that girls go off on. And, if girls go have other, interests, but the boys were able to stay. Oh, you know what? Maybe there is, now that you're saying that, because men are more focused. We know this biologically, the way the brain works. Men are the hunter. They can stay focused on, like, kill the deer, go get the deer. So the guys have been able to really use this work, focus long-term on goals and plans in remote, carry over the meditations, and then go after the careers and even creating their day and using the work that I taught them when they were in 6th grade to have really great careers right now. And even some of them are doing investing, which, again, this is real interesting, because this is, again, they're using their skills to do the market, and they're only in their 20s. So I find that personally very fascinating. And yeah, that's an interesting question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah, no worries. I think Ida was up next with a question.
Thank you. Elly, this has just been such a tremendous experience to hear you. My sons are, I don't know, probably older than Dad's, but the thing is that when my both of them practiced transcendental meditation, we did yoga, everything was fine. In fact, people would get upset because I would think, and we would be having conversations telepathically. Like, it's like, hey, do you want some orange? I'd be at the fridge. Do you want some orange juice? And I would hear, yes. So I would pour one glass and give it to the right kid, and it would freak out people. I mean, but I just kind of blew it off because those weren't people. If you could see me here, I'm pushing the energy away with my hand. But until the second grade for my older son. In the second grade, he, I have tears just remembering this. He was sitting in a class and he was sketching something. And he was listening. That wasn't the issue. But this teacher, now this was many years ago in the South. So I'm just saying, it also, as a side note, it also depends on where you are and what the school system is like.
Agree.
And she yanked him up by his hair, took him to the principal's office and said, he is possessed by the devil. I don't want him in my classroom anymore. So I got a phone call. And I went down to the school and they put him in special education. And he had a wonderful team. I mean, I still remember her name, Margaret, Miss Darden. And as Hagrid would say, a perfectly marvelous dragon. She was red-haired. And I mean, it was like this massive red hair. I mean, she looked like the typical Irish spiritual, I don't want to use the W word, but the being who steps out of the forest and says, I am here for you. And so he survived that barely, being told that he was possessed by the devil. And then there were other people in the culture around him that had heard that from his, because she went to her church and asked him to pray. It was horrible. So anytime these kids do something in public, so to speak, or in school, they will get shut down. I mean, and then right now here in the United States, it's really, I would be so cautious, depending again on the culture of the area and the school district and how many churches are on the corners.
Ida, thank you for sharing that story. And I am really sorry that your son had to experience that. And I'm sorry that your family had to experience that. And when I hear these, I just, I'm intending that he has become an amazing young man because of this now. Only when I hear these stories, I am reminded of what life was like in an inner city school, of messing with the children is basically what it comes down to, just really killing dreams and dulling the light, destroying creativity. And for me, the institutions, like I'm over here, I'm going to say this, these institutions are archaic and they need to go. And unless they can be replaced with educators who are emotionally intelligent and have higher levels of consciousness, otherwise these things have got to go.
And we're doomed. We're doomed if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's happening in Texas right now. I mean, I unfortunately am living here now, and it's really scary.
Yeah. And that's why I really believe that, we're over here now, we're able to teach this work, and even, to the more people that we can, especially younger generations, also the more people that we can have these conversations with, the more that we can create the next generation of intuitives and remote viewers, and not become like, I don't want to start, getting on a soapbox, but the programming that's happening for our children, for the kids, being 2 years old and being, in front of a screen, and then there's no more interaction. There's nothing happening. Yes, my program is in front of a screen. Also, I agree, but only it's a different kind of learning, and their senses are not being dulled. And we're living in scary times for children right now, if you ask me, and adults also, but mostly for the younger children now that are going through this system.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And, like I said, I've been on that. I was at that beginning of the curve, and it changed. I mean, the one thing my two sons told me through the years, when I'd say, hey, let's try this, or, and I would bring up things. And finally, they just told me, Mom, we just want to be average. We want to be like everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's when my soul was, as I say, my soul was bruised.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing this, because this is what happens to children in many parts of the United States, maybe even in the world. Okay. And then there are those children who were so blessed to have parents or grandparents like you people here who are able to bring this work to create an awareness, to raise consciousness, to teach them to trust their intuition, to make a difference, so that we're not all going to be programmed like sheep for the rest of our lives.
Well, one really good thing, my first cousin's either granddaughter or great granddaughter, I can't quite remember how that goes, decided with COVID to turn me on to the Twilight series and the Harry Potter series. I know everybody else knows all about those. I did not know the movies. And at one point in the Harry Potter series, Hermione says to Harry, even in the magical world, people who hear voices are considered strange, or something like that. And I thought, okay, so it's not just out here. That was an astute comment. Thanks. Okay, bye.
Interesting catch. Mm-hmm.
Elly, I have another question, if I may. In the UK here, it seems I hear that every other child I hear about is kind of diagnosed with ADHD or a similar disorder or condition. And it seems to be growing. Do you think that may be because kids aren't being taught to focus upon themselves, and there does seem to be a massive disconnect in what you teach against what I see taught in schools here in the UK?
Yeah. So thank you for that question. Excellent question. When I was teaching middle school in New York City, right, the kids would come in at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they were bringing their breakfast. Breakfast consisted of sugar water and donuts, or some sort of other sweet food. No, not food. Something sweet and sugar water. That was breakfast. So you can imagine, here they are, middle school kids eating this stuff before they enter into the classroom. And now they're going to start flying. Okay. So they're physically going to want to burn off all this sugar, right? They're getting sugar rushes. And so that's part of the problem, is nutrition. And then the second part of the problem is that we all know this, we're not designed to take a middle school boy and or girls sit longer. They have more patience. We're able to sit longer. We know this. Middle school boys, young boys, are not think about your own lives. You guys are not trained. We're not biologically designed to sit in a room listening to some boring person talk about something that we're not interested in all day long. So of course you're going to be restless and impatient, and you're going to be active, and you're going to do these things, and then you're going to get in trouble. And so the teachers are not able to manage all of this because it's a problem child. So what happens? You're disciplined, and if you're not disciplined, if your discipline doesn't work and you're labeled, then you take meds, and then you can go sit quietly in the classroom and you have ADD and ADHD. But put those kids out in the field and have them run around and do some work or something. I bet you're going to have fewer problems than sitting in a classroom all day long. It's not natural. It's just not natural.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Up next was Jules. Do you want to go for it, Jules?
Sorry, you caught me unawares. I was looking at other shit. Elly, thank you very much for your talk this evening. The thing that's springing to mind to me, there is a documentary, I think called Superhuman, which has an English woman who is actually doing a very similar thing.
Yes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, are you guys in contact? Do
yes.
You converse?
We're not talking now. I do know Nicola, and we have spoken, and Nicola does this work also. She does this, but it's a little bit different. She does it through her academy, which is ICU. I forgot exactly what it stands for. She trains teachers. Her method is she follows a prescribed method, of course, which is great. Only I'm more free thinking, if that makes any sense. I don't want this to come out wrong. Okay. I'm not that structured in terms like you don't have to take this particular course in order to teach this work. So for example, if David wanted to go home and be teaching this work to his children, he's a remote viewer, by all means, go teach, do this work, and you can do this. And so Nicola's work is more structured. She follows a different kind of teaching. There is a different kind of spiritual element attached to it. I forget it's a little bit different, only in terms of the belief system. The results, she has incredible results though. So she's worked, but so Sean McNamara, many of you have heard about Sean. So Sean, and also Carolyn Corey. So these are Carolyn Corey and Sean have been working with Mindfolds, and they're teaching children. I don't know. Sean is working right now on training adults how to read blindfolded, and this is my goal also to do with the children the way that Nicola does. Only because of COVID and not being able to be with children and around kids, I've just been challenged by this, so I haven't gotten to it. But Sean's working it with adults right now.
Cool. That's really cool. I know I met Sean. He was a lovely fellow. This whole thing seems to have, it certainly took me by surprise, because it seems to have mushroomed in different areas of the world. For example, Nicola, and then yourself, and Sean obviously later, possibly from seeing other people. Is there a reason that you think that this level of perception, this new bit old, I don't know, that this perception to see through absolute, incredible bounds and blockades, is this a new thing? What do you think brought several people, several organizations around the world to actually start doing this?
I'm not sure, but I will tell you that Roald Dahl, the children's author, wrote about this many, many years ago when he talked about this man in India who he talked to the story about Henry Sugar. And Henry Sugar used to be able to ride blindfolded through the streets and would go into I believe Henry Sugar was able to go into casinos and win lots of money and he could do things without using his eyes. And I know that was back in the day. That was a book, believe it or not, written for children. But again, remember, there's this consciousness. So these ideas have been around for a very long time. We do have collective consciousness. So it's not surprising that people are tapping into the same ideas at the same time around the planet and doing this kind of work. And I think also, Jules, the time is getting ready and ripe. People are more open for this work right now than ever before. So we're looking at the beginning. We're looking at the beginning. I think this thing's going to explode in a few more years unless it gets squashed by virtual realities, okay, which is another. That's my fear, and I don't want to encourage my fears, but my fear is that virtual reality, stick the screen in front of them again, and then tell them what kind of reality to go into, meaning them kids, as opposed to kids being able to then use their own intuition. So my fear is that the virtual reality, the virtual world will take over again and squash a person's abilities and intuition. Again, another method of my opinion, it's control. And can I just add one more thing really quickly about the purpose of schooling? I did notice that when I was teaching in New York, that I had this thought more often than not, that everybody was being structured to become worker bees. And I was actually reprimanded in the classroom for having children read out loud and told that they're not to read out loud because it could influence and upset their self-esteem if they didn't pronounce the word correctly. And I thought to myself, well, if I don't know that they can even pronounce the word, how do I know they can even read? And so if they don't read out loud in the classroom, how do I know that these kids can really read or even pronounce half these words? So when that started happening, I knew that it was my time to leave shortly thereafter and get out of that world because it was too frustrating. And I really do believe that that was part of the programming. The kids were taken on a field trip, which thank God it finally stopped. They were taken to Rikers Island. For anybody who lives near or knows about Rikers Island in New York, it's a prison. And so the kids were taken, the 8th grade field trip was to the prison to show them what their future could look like if they didn't do the work the way that it was designed to be done. So imagine taking a field trip to Rikers Island. Purpose was to scare them, but it was also to, I think maybe even to program them like, hey, look, this is what's going to be for you, like if you don't succeed, I don't know. Anyway, those school trips are over now, though.
Thank you. I have to say, I have to very much agree with you that I think that there's a lot of stuff that certainly I'm seeing and I'm feeling where there is there's almost like a control to stop or control people's natural perception. That there's a massive dumbing people down, putting them in front of phones and screens and just having them. It is a very dystopian potential future. I would like to think that the conversations that we're having here this evening around the world with lots of people, we are not going to stand for that because it is really not acceptable. But there is certainly a dumbing down of just numbing people to their potential, their thoughts, their intuition. We really need to persevere as a group and a growing group. So yeah, thank you very much for being part of the conversation this evening.
And thank you for having me, and thank you all for doing this work. Sometimes we think that it's just, well, I don't know what you think, but sometimes when I'm doing the work, I think it's just, about my life and me, but it's really, we're not. We're a part of the greater collective consciousness. And by us doing this work, we are making a difference and we are protecting ourselves from being numbed and controlled. And I just really thank all of you for being here and for doing this work and just knowing that there's so much more to us as human beings than what we're told. So kudos to all of you for being amazing remote viewers and just doing the work.
Excellent. Thanks for that, guys. I think we should probably end it there because we've been going for 2 hours. And I want to say a big thank you to Elly and to Audra as well for sharing your experiences, and everyone else that shared, and shared your remote viewing as well. We're definitely gonna have to get you back on again, Elly, if you're up for that. Excellent.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. It's been a really fascinating evening. I hope you have a good weekend ahead, and we shall see you next week. So take care.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you, Des.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elly.
Have a good
Thanks,
evening.
everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for
Thank
having me.
you.
Thanks, Des, for everybody.